If the Anunnaki accounts are history rather than mythology, everything changes. Not just timelines or archaeological details, but the fundamental story humanity tells itself about what we are and where we came from. The standard narrative presents humans as the apex of natural evolution, beings who independently developed consciousness, intelligence, and civilization through millions of years of gradual adaptation. We're special because we emerged naturally, unique because we achieved sophistication without assistance. Our origin story is one of triumph through perseverance, intelligence emerging from simple beginnings through purely natural processes. The Anunnaki narrative offers something different. We're engineered rather than evolved, at least in our current form. Created with specific purpose by beings who possessed capabilities we're only now beginning to match. Our civilization wasn't slowly developed, but rapidly bootstrapped through transferred knowledge. We're special, not because we're naturally unique, but because we were chosen for enhancement. This reframing provokes deep philosophical questions. Does engineered origin diminish human worth? Some argue yes. It makes us products rather than miracles, tools rather than independent beings, derivative rather than original. Others argue the opposite. Being selected for enhancement by advanced beings suggests potential our creators recognized, capabilities worth developing, significance beyond random emergence. The question isn't really about worth. It's about identity and agency. Are we independent beings who achieved civilization through our own ingenuity, or recipients of gifts we didn't create? The answer affects how we see ourselves, how we judge our achievements, how we approach our future development. But accepting the Anunnaki framework does something else. It resolves mysteries that standard chronology struggles with. Why did civilization appear suddenly in multiple locations without visible developmental stages? Because it was taught, not slowly developed. Why did ancient cultures possess astronomical and mathematical knowledge they shouldn't have according to accepted timelines? Because the knowledge was transferred from those who already possessed it. Why are global flood myths so remarkably consistent in detail across separated cultures? Because they preserve memories of the same event. Why do massive, precisely built structures appear before the supposed technology to construct them? Because the technology existed earlier than we've acknowledged, or assistance came from those with more advanced capabilities. The Anunnaki narrative doesn't require abandoning science. It adds context. Evolution still happened. We developed from earlier hominids through natural processes, but those processes may have included external intervention at critical points, genetic enhancement that accelerated development, knowledge transfer that bypassed millennia of trial and error discovery. This also changes how we understand religion, not as wholly imagined spiritual systems created by primitive minds trying to explain natural phenomena, but as institutions preserving distorted memories of actual historical events and relationships. The gods weren't abstract forces or psychological projections. They were physical beings whose interactions with humanity got gradually mythologized as direct contact faded into memory. This explains why ancient texts describe gods in surprisingly human terms. They ate and drank. They argued and formed alliances. They made mistakes and faced consequences. They aged slowly, but eventually died. These aren't characteristics of abstract divine forces or spiritual principles. They're characteristics of physical beings. Advanced, certainly. Long-lived, definitely. But mortal and fallible nonetheless. The evolution versus creation debate gets reframed. Not evolution or creation, but evolution with direction. Genetic enhancement of existing hominids. Natural processes accelerated through intervention. This isn't anti-science. It's expanded science, acknowledging that development might have involved factors beyond purely random mutation and natural selection. Some find this disturbing, the idea that we were created for someone else's purposes, that our civilization was gifted rather than achieved, that we might be someone's abandoned project rather than nature's triumph. But others find it liberating. We're not limited by what natural evolution produced. We carry genetic enhancements, inherited knowledge, potential that was deliberately built into us. And crucially, we're not still bound by our original purpose. Whatever we were created to do, we've moved beyond it. We've taken the foundation we were given and built something the Anunnaki might not have anticipated. We've proven capable of independent development, creative innovation, achievement beyond our initial programming. If we're engineered, the question isn't whether that diminishes us. It's whether we've justified the engineering, exceeded our design specifications, become something more than our creators intended. And looking at human history, the resilience, the creativity, the stubborn refusal to remain limited, the answer might be yes. The tablets describe humanity's creation with clear purpose. We were workers, designed to perform labor the Anunnaki found difficult or tedious. Our genetic enhancements served specific functions: strength for mining, dexterity for crafting, sufficient intelligence to follow complex instructions, but not enough to question our role. That was the plan, according to texts describing Enlil's vision. Create capable workers who would remain permanently subordinate, useful tools that wouldn't develop beyond their intended function. Humanity as permanent servants, civilization as eternal labor camp, our role fixed and unchanging. But Enki saw different possibilities. The same texts describe his dissent, his advocacy for giving humans more than minimal capability. He pushed for greater intelligence, for teaching knowledge beyond immediate utility, for granting autonomy that Enlil considered dangerous. The factional conflict between them was ultimately about human potential, whether we should remain tools or be allowed to evolve into something more. 4,000 years after the withdrawal, we can evaluate who was right. We've exceeded our original specifications dramatically. We manipulate genetics as Enki did, editing DNA, creating new organisms, modifying ourselves. We explore space as the Anunnaki did, building craft that leave Earth's atmosphere, establishing presence beyond our planet. We create artificial intelligence as they created us, building thinking machines that serve our purposes while we debate their rights and consciousness. We've become what Enlil feared, beings capable of matching and potentially surpassing our creators. We've vindicated what Enki apparently hoped, that enhanced humans would develop independence, creativity, and capabilities beyond their initial programming. The post-flood texts suggest this outcome was anticipated, at least by some Anunnaki. The withdrawal wasn't abandonment, but graduation. Like parents who raise children to eventual independence, the Anunnaki established humanity's foundation, then stepped back to see what we'd build on our own. This framework makes human achievement more impressive rather than less. We weren't given complete knowledge and left to maintain it. We received fragments, lost most of it, and had to painstakingly rebuild from partial understanding. We faced genetic limitations, shorter lifespans, lesser physical capabilities, yet managed to progress despite these constraints. We operated under institutional suppression that buried our own history, yet somehow retained enough drive and curiosity to rediscover what had been hidden. Modern humanity exists in a strange position. We're approaching capabilities that match Anunnaki descriptions: genetic engineering, space exploration, artificial intelligence, life extension research, consciousness manipulation. All the technologies the tablets attribute to our creators, we're now developing independently. This raises profound questions about purpose. If we were created to serve specific functions, but we've moved far beyond those functions, what's our purpose now? Do we define it ourselves? Do we inherit the Anunnaki's purposes and become the advanced civilization that they were? Do we reject the entire framework and forge completely new paths? Perhaps purpose isn't fixed. Perhaps we were given a starting point, and the rest is up to us. The Anunnaki provided genetic foundation and initial knowledge. But what we do with that inheritance is our choice. We can pursue their path, becoming long-lived, spacefaring, technologically sophisticated beings who perhaps one day assist developing species as we were assisted. Or we can choose different directions they never imagined. The timeline matters psychologically. If the Anunnaki lived for thousands of years as the tablets describe, their withdrawal 4,000 years ago is recent to them, a single lifespan for some. They might still be watching, waiting to see what their creation becomes, whether the experiment succeeded beyond Enlil's limited vision or justified Enki's faith in human potential. We're living in the evaluation period. The test isn't whether we can follow instructions anymore. It's whether we can thrive independently, whether we can solve problems creatively, whether we can become truly self-determining beings rather than enhanced animals serving programmed purposes. So far, against considerable odds, we're passing. We survived the withdrawal. We rebuilt civilization. We rediscovered knowledge. We're approaching the capabilities our creators possessed. We're proving that whatever we were made to be, we can become more. Enki bet on human potential. 4,000 years later, we're proving him right. Prophecies across cultures describe the gods returning, not metaphorically as spiritual revival, but literally as physical reappearance of beings who once walked among humans and then withdrew. Most dismiss these as religious hope, wishful thinking by cultures that missed their gods. But what if they're preserved warnings or promises? What if the Anunnaki established conditions for renewed contact, thresholds that would trigger return? Some tablets describe cyclical patterns. The Anunnaki arrive, establish civilization, humans advance. Some catastrophe occurs. They withdraw. Humans rebuild. The cycle repeats. If this pattern is real, we might be approaching another transition point. The flood marked the last major reset. 4,000 years later, we've rebuilt to levels approaching or exceeding pre-flood capabilities. Consider what we've achieved in the past century alone. Nuclear weapons, harnessing atomic energy for destructive purposes that the tablets describe Anunnaki factions using against each other. Genetic engineering, manipulating life's fundamental code as Enki did when creating enhanced humans. Space exploration, leaving Earth's atmosphere and establishing presence beyond our planet. All the capabilities that reportedly existed before the last catastrophe, we're rediscovering or developing independently. Ancient texts describe the Anunnaki promising to return when humanity reaches certain markers. The specific thresholds vary across traditions, but common themes appear. When humans touch the stars, when they understand the essence of life, when they achieve certain technological capabilities. We've achieved all of these. We've reached space. We've decoded DNA and begun manipulating genetics. We've developed technologies that would seem like magic to our ancestors. If return conditions were real, we're living in the approach period, the generation that might see renewed contact, the time when watchers become participants again, when observation shifts to interaction, when whatever agreement or protocol governed the withdrawal reaches its conclusion. Modern UAP disclosures add interesting context. Governments acknowledging unidentified aerial phenomena, admitting these objects exist and display capabilities beyond known technology, beginning serious investigation after decades of dismissal. Is this preparation for alien contact as commonly framed? Or preparation for Anunnaki return, contact with beings who aren't alien but aboriginal to Earth, who established operations here before recorded history and never fully left? The question of whether return would be beneficial or dangerous lacks simple answer. It depends on which faction returns and how they view our development. Enki's line might see successful children who've justified the faith placed in them, beings ready for advanced knowledge and partnership. Enlil's faction might see dangerous experiments that have developed beyond safe control, beings who need reset or elimination before they cause problems. We don't know if these factions still exist, if the political divisions that shaped ancient policy persist, if unified consensus has emerged, or if entirely new approaches have developed in 4,000 years of human independence. What should humanity do with this possibility? Some argue for preparation, developing space capabilities, increasing technological sophistication, ensuring we can meet potential return as equals rather than subordinates. Others suggest caution, avoiding certain technological developments that might trigger contact before we're ready, maintaining lower profile until we better understand the risks. Still others propose rejection, refusing the relationship entirely, asserting independence regardless of origins, claiming our right to develop on our own terms without intervention from those who created us, then abandoned us for 4,000 years. The lack of consensus reflects the fundamental uncertainty. We don't know if return is coming. We don't know if the thresholds are real or interpreted correctly. We don't know if the Anunnaki still exist or maintain interest in their former project. We're operating on fragments of information, preserved through millennia of distortion, trying to prepare for scenarios we can't fully understand. But the ancient texts are clear on one point. The departure was never described as permanent. The withdrawal had duration, not finality. Somewhere in the preserved accounts is the suggestion that contact would resume when conditions were right. We've reached the stars. We've touched the essence of life. We've rebuilt civilization and rediscovered lost knowledge. If the promises were real, if the conditions are met, if anyone is still watching and waiting, then these might be the years before everything changes again. The question is whether we're ready for that change, and whether readiness even matters when facing what's coming. The question isn't academic. Understanding our origins shapes how we see ourselves, how we approach our future, how we interpret our capabilities and limitations. A civilization built on incomplete self-knowledge is like a person with amnesia trying to navigate life. Functional, perhaps, but operating without crucial context that would explain persistent patterns, recurring drives, fundamental aspects of identity. We invest billions searching for extraterrestrial intelligence. SETI monitors the cosmos, hoping to detect signals from distant civilizations. Space agencies plan missions to potentially habitable worlds. The search for alien life drives enormous resources and captures public imagination. Yet we ignore texts describing extraterrestrial contact that allegedly shaped our own civilization. We're looking for what our ancestors claim they already found and documented. If the tablets are right, recovering suppressed knowledge isn't just historical curiosity, it's practical necessity. Ancient texts might contain technological information relevant to modern challenges. Agricultural techniques we've forgotten, engineering principles we're rediscovering slowly, medical knowledge that was lost, mathematical approaches that could accelerate development. Dismissing these texts as mythology means potentially ignoring solutions to problems we're struggling with now. Understanding that humans have achieved advanced civilization before changes our sense of possibility. We're not attempting something unprecedented when we build complex societies, develop sophisticated technologies, or organize at large scales. We're repeating patterns that apparently succeeded in the past, even if knowledge of those successes was suppressed. This creates different psychological foundation, not pioneers in uncharted territory, but people recovering abilities we once possessed. The Anunnaki narrative provides context for persistent human behaviors that otherwise seem arbitrary. Our drive to reach for the stars might be genetic memory of our Creator's origins, instinct inherited from beings who came from elsewhere. Our peculiar fascination with gold, beyond its practical utility, might trace to purposes built into us, serving functions we no longer consciously remember, but still feel drawn toward. Our spiritual yearning, the sense that something's missing, that we belong to something larger. This might be longing for reconnection with sources we've been separated from. Accepting cyclical rather than linear civilization transforms how we approach sustainability and long-term planning. If advanced civilizations have risen and fallen before, if knowledge has been gained and lost repeatedly, then collapse isn't just theoretical danger. It's documented historical pattern. This makes preventing future collapse urgent rather than paranoid. It suggests we should preserve knowledge redundantly, maintain diverse skill sets across populations, avoid over-specialization that makes civilizations fragile. The knowledge also democratizes power in interesting ways. Ruling bloodlines throughout history justified authority by claiming descent from gods. Special genetic heritage that made them legitimately superior. If the Anunnaki narrative is real, then all humans are Anunnaki enhanced. We all carry the genetic modifications. All inherit the same fundamental enhancements. This removes the special status that elites claimed, undermines justifications for hereditary power based on divine lineage. Truth matters intrinsically, regardless of practical applications. Humans deserve to know their actual history rather than sanitized versions edited by institutions protecting their paradigms. We deserve access to our own origin story, complete with whatever complications and implications it contains. Knowledge isn't just power, it's right. The right to understand where we came from, what we are, what possibilities might exist beyond consensus narratives. Recovering this knowledge could fundamentally unify humanity. If we're all products of the same creation event, all descendants of enhanced ancestors, all carrying the same fundamental heritage, then racial divisions become meaningless. National origin myths that separate us into competing groups lose foundation. We're one species with one origin, whether that origin is purely natural evolution or includes external intervention. The specifics matter less than the unity. This doesn't mean blind acceptance of every alternative theory. It means taking seriously the possibility that our history is incomplete, that institutional narratives might serve interests beyond truth-telling, that ancient texts might preserve more historical reality than we've acknowledged. The stakes aren't just academic. How we understand our past shapes how we approach our future. What we believe about our origins affects what we think we're capable of becoming. The questions we ask determine which answers we'll find. And right now, we're not asking enough questions. We're accepting frameworks that might be fundamentally incomplete, built on assumptions that might be wrong, maintained by institutions that might have reasons to prefer certain narratives over others. Truth might be more complex than we've been taught. Understanding that complexity might be essential for navigating what comes next. The territory is treacherous. Ancient astronaut theories attract both sincere researchers and opportunistic profiteers. Discernment becomes essential when navigating claims about the Anunnaki, because misinformation thrives alongside legitimate investigation. Start with primary sources, not interpretations, not documentaries, not books claiming to reveal secret knowledge, actual tablet translations. Museums publish these. Academic journals contain them. The British Museum, the University of Pennsylvania, the Louvre, all maintain online databases where you can view photographs of tablets and read scholarly translations. These are verifiable. You can check them yourself. When someone claims a tablet says something specific, verify. Does the tablet exist? What's its catalog number? Which museum holds it? What do professional translations actually say versus what interpretations claim? This isn't difficult research. It's basic fact-checking that separates legitimate investigation from invention. Red flags appear in predictable patterns. Claims that can't be verified with sources. Resistance to providing catalog numbers or museum locations when asked. Appeals to secret knowledge that conveniently can't be shared because it's too dangerous or suppressed. Mixing Anunnaki research with unrelated conspiracy theories about modern politics or celebrities. These suggest someone selling narrative rather than investigating evidence. Distinguish between speculative interpretation and claimed fact. Speculation can be valuable, exploring possibilities, connecting patterns, proposing frameworks. But speculation requires acknowledgement of uncertainty. When someone presents speculation as established fact, when they claim certainty about inherently ambiguous evidence, credibility suffers. Learn to use academic resources directly. JSTOR, academia.edu, university library databases. These provide access to actual scholarship. Not popularized summaries, but peer-reviewed research. Read what Assyriologists actually write about Sumerian texts. Check what archaeologists actually report from excavations. Compare academic consensus with alternative interpretations, and evaluate where they diverge and why. Truth often exists between extremes. Mainstream archaeology isn't entirely wrong. Tablets are mythology in the sense that they're ancient religious texts, and many elements are clearly symbolic. Alternative researchers aren't entirely right. Not every speculation is valid. Not every pattern is meaningful. Not every anomaly proves ancient aliens. Synthesis requires evaluating evidence from multiple perspectives and finding where they align and where they contradict. Assess probability rather than demanding certainty. Some claims have strong evidence. Sumerian tablets exist. They describe beings called Anunnaki. These descriptions contain specific details about origins and activities. Some claims have circumstantial evidence, archaeological anomalies suggesting advanced ancient knowledge, mathematical sophistication appearing without visible development, structures built with precision exceeding known period capabilities. Some claims are pure speculation, specific return dates, detailed Anunnaki motivations, comprehensive knowledge of their technology. Intellectual honesty requires admitting uncertainty. We don't know definitively whether Anunnaki accounts describe literal historical events or mythologized cultural memories. We can't prove external intervention in human development, but we also can't fully explain certain anomalies through conventional frameworks. The evidence is suggestive but not conclusive. The suppression is apparent but not absolute. What we can establish with confidence is more limited but still significant. Ancient texts exist describing these events. Institutional interpretation of those texts changed dramatically over time. Certain evidence has been restricted or made inaccessible. Mainstream explanations for various anomalies require their own unlikely assumptions. Questions remain unanswered, not because they've been resolved, but because they've been declared settled without satisfactory resolution. The truth about the Anunnaki won't come from a single source claiming comprehensive revelation. It exists in fragments across museums, archives, archaeological sites, and academic research. It requires patient investigation, careful evaluation, willingness to sit with uncertainty while evidence accumulates. The tablets are real. The museums are real. The translations are accessible. Anyone with internet access and intellectual curiosity can examine primary sources, verify claims, and draw informed conclusions rather than accepting any authority's narrative. Whether that authority is mainstream academia, dismissing everything as mythology, or alternative researchers claiming certain knowledge of ancient alien intervention. The investigation is open to you, not because someone grants permission, but because the evidence exists in public institutions waiting for anyone curious enough to actually look. Certainty is overrated. The demand for definitive answers, for binary conclusions, for comfortable resolution. This often obscures more than it reveals. Some questions don't have simple answers. Some mysteries deepen with investigation rather than resolving. And perhaps that's appropriate. The Anunnaki question will likely never be definitively settled. The evidence is ancient, fragmented, filtered through millennia of transmission and interpretation. Physical proof that would satisfy scientific standards is difficult to obtain. Institutional resistance to reconsidering established frameworks remains strong. We're left with suggestive patterns, intriguing anomalies, compelling correlations, but not irrefutable proof. This ambiguity isn't failure. It's the nature of investigating origins separated from us by thousands of years and layers of deliberate obscuration. Truth about the distant past is rarely clean or complete. We work with what survived, what was preserved, what institutions couldn't fully erase despite efforts. The value lies not just in finding answers, but in asking better questions. Instead of accepting simplistic narratives about primitive humans slowly developing civilization, we examine complexities. Why did sophisticated knowledge appear suddenly? Why do separated cultures share remarkably similar origin stories? Why do ancient texts describe gods in surprisingly physical, fallible terms, rather than abstract spiritual perfection? These questions push us toward deeper understanding, regardless of where answers lead. They force examination of assumptions, reconsideration of frameworks, willingness to entertain possibilities that challenge comfortable consensus. The Anunnaki mystery represents humanity's broader condition. We're conscious beings trying to understand our origins, purpose, and place in the cosmos without having complete information. We navigate existence with partial knowledge, inherited stories, fragmented memories. We construct meaning from incomplete data and hope our conclusions approximate truth. This mirrors personal human experience. We all operate with incomplete knowledge of our full heritage, uncertain understanding of our potential, limited awareness of forces that shaped us. We make decisions, form identities, pursue purposes based on partial information and best guesses. The Anunnaki question is a cosmic version of challenges we face individually. Whether the Anunnaki existed as physical beings or represent symbolic personification of human potential and lost knowledge, engaging with their story serves purposes beyond historical accuracy. It teaches skepticism toward authority, encourages questioning of established narratives, promotes intellectual independence. It suggests possibilities larger than consensus permits, capabilities greater than accepted frameworks acknowledge. Mystery serves functions beyond frustrating our desire for closure. It keeps us curious, prevents intellectual stagnation, maintains humility about how much we actually know versus how much we assume. Premature certainty closes investigation. Sustained mystery keeps it open. What remains indisputably real? The knowledge systems attributed to the Anunnaki exist and are accessible. The mathematics works whether humans discovered it or were taught it. The monuments stand regardless of who built them or why. The human potential for advancement persists, whether we're naturally evolved or genetically enhanced. Perhaps the most important truth isn't whether the Anunnaki physically existed. It's that humans are capable of greatness. We've achieved sophisticated civilization, possibly multiple times if the tablets are right. We've recovered from catastrophes, rebuilt from ruins, rediscovered lost knowledge. We've proven resilient, creative, capable of more than any limitations placed on us by nature, creators, or suppressors of knowledge. The documentary you've been listening to is not definitive. It's invitation to continue investigation on your own terms. The tablets exist in museums. The translations are published. The questions are open. You don't need permission from academic institutions or alternative researchers to examine evidence and draw conclusions. The investigation belongs to anyone curious enough to pursue it. Maybe the Anunnaki's greatest gift, whether they existed or not, was demonstrating that humans should question, should seek, should refuse simple answers, and demand better evidence. In that sense, everyone who questions their origins, who investigates suppressed narratives, who refuses to accept incomplete explanations, they honor whatever legacy the Anunnaki might represent. The mystery remains open. The investigation continues. And perhaps that's exactly as it should be. Truth rewards those who seek it patiently, critically, persistently. Sleep well, knowing the questions are real, even if the answers remain elusive. The search itself has value. The wondering itself creates meaning. And tomorrow, if you choose, you can start looking for yourself.